Okay, folks, we're going to start now. Good evening. I want to welcome you to the first meeting of the San Francisco chapter of ASA for 2012. Please give yourselves a big round of applause for being here tonight. First of all, I want to thank all of you who participated in our Christmas holiday potluck on the 20th. We had a fantastic potluck. So I need to thank the Green Cross and the Green Door for their support for that. They brought a tremendous amount of fabulous food. And those of you who were there know that there were all sorts of medical surprises. But that wasn't officially part of our meeting. That was just a party. I want to thank, first of all, Michael Nolan and the staff of the Green Door for allowing us to use this fabulous space. Please give them a big round of applause. And I also want to thank Kevin Reed and the staff of the Green Cross for all their support. And I'd like the rest of the Corps, besides me, David, to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Hunter Holland. I'm one of the core members of the San Francisco chapter.
Yay!
And I'm on the Medical Cannabis Task Force.
Oh, you are? You got elected in? Oh, that's awesome. You can go to a meeting now?
Yeah. Hopefully.
Hi, everybody. My name is Karen Winston. I'm also a member of the core here of the chapter. Been involved with ASA for a long time, going on about 5 years now.
Since the beginning, haven't you?
About 3 years after the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm David. I've been in the Corps for about 4 years now, and I'm really happy to be involved with the medical cannabis movement. And I think Hunter is a great person to be on the task force. He took over the seat that I resigned from after my one-year term was over. I just decided not to run again. And that was a patient advocate seat. And I can't think of a better person than Hunter to be one of our patient advocates.
Thank you.
Woo! Hey y'all, Happy New Year. Good to see you again. My name is Tony Bowles. I've been a chapter member for quite a while. I was actually one of the founding members, but I moved away for 5 years. I was out in DC and Maryland helping with ASA out there, and now I'm back. I moved back in April, and I'm happy to be part of the chapter once again. Here I am.
Yay!
Happy New Year, everybody. My name is Michael Cohen, and I've been active in ASA for about 2 years now, and the last year with the Corps. And I hope to make as much a contribution as I can. And I want to thank all of you for being here tonight and for being part of this. Yay.
Since we haven't asked everyone to introduce themselves in a long time, we'd like everyone to briefly say a few words, say who you are, and anything you want to briefly share about yourself and why you're here.
Hi, I'm Mike. Thanks for the meetings.
And my name is Arden Bennett. And your party, Christmas party was awesome.
Oh, thank you.
My name is Tommy, and I'm from Brentwood, and we're at Zoom here now, anyway. And been a patient for about 1.5 years but I've been smoking for 35 years or so. And I am stepping up from being just an advocate to being more of an advocate.
Awesome.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
I'm Ken Hotniff and a patient.
Welcome, Ken.
I'm Melody, and I hope we can legalize weed this year. And, I'm really serious. Let's get it on the ballot and do something. I think this is the year we're really going to do it. I'm real hopeful, and it seems like it's going to be a really, really good year for all of us who are involved in it. And I think the gay marriage thing is going to be overturned this year, too. But that's my only 2 things for this year.
Thanks, Melody.
You're welcome. and it was a killer party. All the baked goods, everything, the food was so good, the lasagna from next door, oh, that was kick-ass. No, it was good food. You guys made it, was it you guys? Yeah, you guys made the good little edibles.
Alright, circle around.
Introduce yourselves.
Oh, I'm Pam. Immigration. I've been coming here for a while.
Welcome, Pam.
I'm Colleen. I'm new to ASA. I'm with Hamilton Labs. I grew up in DC, so
Right on.
I'll talk about that sometime. But that's it. Happy to be here.
Welcome.
I'm Juliana and founder of Auntie Dolores Edibles.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We love you guys too. It's really great to be here for the party and everything.
What did you say?
Auntie Dolores Edibles. Cannabis edibles. But yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for being back here. And thank you for your generosity at the last party meeting.
Well, that was just
Absolutely.
off the
Yeah.
little bike goes a long way.
Yeah.
Back in the back.
Back.
Oh, I'm Joy Bounds, and I volunteer with County Abacola with the housing rights. And I guess I'm somewhat of an activist. And I'm here because I want to support the initiative to legalize marijuana. It's a real important issue because it's really helped me with my arthritis. And I really feel without medical marijuana, you know, I would be in a lot more pain. So I want to advocate as much as I possibly can to get it legalized.
Thanks.
That's it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Go ahead.
I'm Eva, and I came today because I'm hearing so many things in the grassroots that so many dispensaries are being closed. It's like you go to sleep one day, you wake up the next day, and there's always so many things happening in the cannabis community. It seems like we fight for things, we finally get them, and now they're taking it away. It's like the army don't give it, the army don't take it away. And why aren't we speaking the same language, and why is this nightmare happening now, you know? It's 2012, I mean, we better get with it. Things are gonna happen, right? According to the Mayan calendar, 12 was the end of this order and the bringing of a new order, and hopefully it's not this order, so I'm saying we're gonna get anything done. This is the year to do it. Anyway, happy New Year.
Next.
My name is Cheryl, and I'm here, I used to sit on the Cannabis Club back in 2004, 2001, 2004, and I was running to get back into not just the dispensing part, but just to actually be part of the application. So I'm here in San Francisco, so this is my first meeting.
Great.
My name is Joseph Henderson. I do public affairs and outreach for Marinless Solutions. We are one of the two last cooperatives in Marin County. You guys have been following, which I'm sure all of you are. Here. On the 17th, we lost the cooperative in Fairfax.
Yeah.
On the 31st, we lost the cooperative in Kentfield. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited about the proposition we'll be discussing this evening because I'm a firm believer that this will be granting us some relief in Marin for at least the foreseeable future.
Thank you.
My name's David. Patient. Happy New Year.
Welcome back.
My name is Melinda, I'm a patient, and it's an honor to be here. And I am devastated that these clubs are closing. Because it's so passion. I'm sorry to get upset, but it's been bothering me. I just don't understand. Y'all work so hard. And it's important to me, so thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you.
We love you.
Hi, I'm Ray Reese, and I'm an activist for more things than cannabis, redwood trees and all. Been living in Northern California on and off for about 15 years. And I love y'all. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
All right, my name is Forte, and I'm a patient, and Happy New Year.
All right. I'm Nate, I'm a patient. It's just the love of cannabis that brings me around. So I'm glad to be here.
Thanks.
Has anyone not introduced themselves who wants to? I think we just got some new people coming in. If you'd like to come in and introduce yourselves, that would be great. All right. All right, we're going to start now. First thing I just want to say, if you're not on the SF-ASA email alert list, you can go to Safe Access Now, safeaccessnow.org, and sign up for Bay Area email alerts. Hunter?
All right, so there's been some interesting local news in the cannabis community within the last month or so. The Medical Cannabis Task Force met in December, and we got a chance to sit down and kind of grill Larry Kessler, who works for the Department of Public Health. He's kind of the attorney that you go talk to if you want something okayed for cannabis, medical cannabis in San Francisco. But apparently, and this goes in conjunction with this, Market Street Co-op did receive a letter. So they were the 5th dispensary that we're aware of in San Francisco to get a letter. And Larry Kessler actually said that there had only been 5 dispensaries files that were subpoenaed by the federal government. So the federal government has so far only asked for the 5 dispensaries that have just received letters, including MetaThrive, Mr. Nice Guy, Divinity Tree, Sanctuary, and yeah, Market Street Co-op. So Market Street Co-op is going to close January 9th. And as a result of the PAC decision and some other things that are going on, Dennis Herrera, who's another SF attorney, has also put all pending applications and permits for dispensaries on hold, which is, yeah, not ideal for a lot of people. And as a result, we've actually seen 2 dispensaries so far that have received letters and have shut down, had actually switched their business model over towards delivery services. So MetaThrive and Divinity Tree are now doing delivery, and yeah, we ask that you support them both.
I'm having so much fun with that.
Yes.
The Divinity Tree website is divinitytree.org and metathrive.com for MetaThrive. And I just want to say that if you have been a patron of these dispensaries, we would hope that you would continue to use them as delivery services to keep them alive and thriving.
And I know that, Melinda mentioned, and there was another person back here who mentioned the closure of dispensaries being a big problem. And I wanted to just piggyback on to Hunter's comments, because we have had our local elected state assemblyman, Tom Amiano, did conduct, I'll get to you right, you're up, Melanie, I got you down. But, Tom Amiano, our assemblyman, did have a meeting with the U.S. Attorney, Melinda Haig, who represents this district and is responsible for sending these letters and I guess picking and choosing which dispensaries she is going to target. And the results of that meeting, it is what it is. I mean, going into a meeting with the federal government, I don't think we can expect a whole lot. But she did indicate that, and as Larry Kessler, I believe, testified to in the task force meeting, she did indicate that these dispensaries had received complaints. She wasn't clear about what those complaints were, what the nature of the complaints were, who the complaints came from, and she wasn't willing to sort of give that information over even to our elected officials. So you can bet that Mr. Amiano continued to press, that his office continued to try to hold her in account for these, ask whether or not you know, a state law that Mr. Amiano has been very vocal about trying to figure out in terms of supporting statewide regulation to control and regulate medical cannabis dispensaries, like we'll get to in a minute. If passing some sort of statewide measure would have any impact on her decision to choose to interfere with state law like she's chosen, and her position was basically, I don't give a shit what state law is. I have the authority under U.S. law to shut these places down, and then she added something akin to the fact that I haven't conducted any raids, I haven't seized anyone's property, and what these dispensaries are experiencing could be a lot worse. Now, you can take that for what it's worth. Clearly, ACE's opinion, ASA SF chapter's opinion, is that so long as these places are regulated and controlled by local law, they should be immune from federal prosecution. But her defense is, you know, they've engaged a different tactic. That tactic is a whole lot less violent. Arguably, it's a whole lot more effective as well. So take it for what it's worth. The only good news here is that our assemblymen and our Senator Leno and Tom Amiano have continued to exert some pressure, exert some concern, and communicate that concern to our U.S. Attorney, which, quite frankly, is something we haven't had before. So the fact that we have this open line of communication is good, and we'll get to more open lines of communications down the agenda. But I just wanted to piggyback and say, not only is the task force in the city of San Francisco engaged in trying to figure this out, but our state leaders are also engaged, and that's good news considering the history we've had here. So I'll leave it at that. Melanie, do you have a question?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I just want to say, people like Melinda over here and other people, if those of us who were blessed to be at Dennis's Club know what a social network it was. Now, cannabis clubs, when people go to them, and when the Divinity Tree and all these other clubs are closing, there's people who go there for compassion. There's people who go there, if these clubs weren't there, they wouldn't get high that day. They wouldn't be medicated. They know if they can go to this place. Marijuana is a social drug. It's not like crack or heroin or speed where you don't want to share it. You know what I'm saying? You want to share cannabis. And it really sucks that these places are closing down, because a lot of these people are in the Tenderloin. They don't have any friends. They don't have a lot of places to go. And this is their social network. This is where they could go and feel like they were a human being for at least an hour for the day, or however long they were allowed to sit in this club. And I think that's a real shame of what they're doing. And, you know, because patients are, you know, I mean, it just sucks. You know, I mean, I'm blessed to have caregivers, but people who don't, I mean, it just, when they rely on these clubs, it really sucks.
So we're going to get to other questions in a minute,
but
just by a show of hands, how many people are upset by club closures?
Sure.
Okay, keep your hands up. If you have, in the last 30 days, called Nancy Pelosi to tell her you're pissed off about these club closures. Okay, look at the room now. Every single one of you raised your hand and said you are pissed off that this is affecting your life, but you're not going to call the people who have the power to make that change. And that's why we're here.
Exactly.
If you want to change, you have to reach out to the people who have the power to make that change. And right now, the person that has that power to effectuate change at the federal level is Ms. Pelosi.
Exactly.
So please contact her office. Call, email, write a letter. It really takes 30 seconds to 5 minutes of your life to sit down and write a letter that says, Ms. Pelosi, I am a constituent in San Francisco. I'm a medical marijuana patient. The closures of clubs are doing this to me. This is why I'm affected. This is why I'm upset. Please make a change. Please stand up for medical marijuana patients' rights. That is a 5-minute letter. You can email that in 5 minutes. So let me ask you, is 5 minutes of your time worth trying to effectuate change?
Yeah.
So
everybody can't email, and we have people out here that you need to let them write as well.
Right? You can call. There are free
Don't
phone
think
numbers that you
life
can
is
call.
like that.
If you come on, how often are you down by the federal building at 5th and Bryant?
I would write an email.
How often are you down by
I
the
just left my MCRG that's going to be closed.
But think about it. If you're down at the federal building at 5th and Bryant, or whatever it is, 4th and Bryant, whatever.
The problem is we just cannot have patients to get active when they are hurting. We need to have patients already doing these things. What she's talking about, we should already have a social network. And it's not right to have this men's dispenser and no one you can really go in and smoke is out the road and go. You know, we let it roll like that. Allen Ocho did that. We went from 78 to 24. They said he had to all be handicapped. That's what she did with that. Thank you.
I just want to add that our next meeting actually is going to be a spokesperson training where we're actually going to gear you with the knowledge that you can go in and meet with these legislators. So I know it's intimidating, but we're going to help you with that. And then hopefully a little further in the future, we're actually going to set up meetings. We'll take you in there so you can go. We'll go along with you, and hopefully it'll be easier. But we need these meetings to be happening. We need people to be contacting them.
And if you don't have an email, if you do not have phone, if you do not have a telephone, then you can literally walk down to 5th and Bryant in that new federal building. Nancy Pelosi has not one, but 2 offices there. So you can feel free to drop by and speak with the local attendant. You literally can just walk into the office and say, I'm a constituent, here's my concern, please write it down and please communicate this to Ms. Pelosi when she returns to the district. Once you finish that meeting, you can march up 1 floor and go see Senators Boxer and Senator Feinstein. I mean, in one day, in 1 hour, you can speak to all 3 of your federal officials who have the power to effectuate change here. And to date, have been completely silent on this issue. If silence equals death on this issue, these 3 federal officials are responsible for killing our collectives here in San Francisco.
This is the
and we
lowest
have a
price in the
responsibility to make sure they act in our favor.
Yeah, that one hurt.
You know, I don't try to understand how they have the audacity to just close down these businesses that have been following the state laws. Where did they get the audacity? Where did they get the power? I understand that it's an election year and maybe the federal government's behind this, but it's like we're the people that put Obama in office. We're the people that have kept Pelosi and the Boxer and Feinstein in office. You know, if they don't care about what's happening to medical patients on that level, then we should like really bring it up to their attention that we voted them in and we can vote them out.
Absolutely.
You
should call all 3 of them and say that. Thank you. All right, last 2 questions. We're going to move on.
My question is about Larry Kessler and just the local environment here. I don't really understand where things are with that right now. And does Larry Kessler still have a job, or is he?
Good question.
I mean, just trying to understand the politics around all that.
Yeah, we'll say he has a job for now. Yeah.
He does have a job for now. So when we heard about the city attorney made their announcement during the November. There were several collectives that were supposed to go through a hearing, our planning hearing in November. And at that planning hearing, the city attorney showed up and said, like, put a yellow light on everything and told the planning commission, you can't move forward on any of these pending applications until we can figure out what the California Supreme Court is going to do with the case out of Long Beach. I'm not sure if everyone was here when we discussed that Long Beach case, but essentially that case out of Long Beach throws into jeopardy or throws into question whether or not cities have the right to permit collectives. Now, clearly we're already permitting collectives here. What the city attorney further communicated, and I'm sure when they pull the city attorneys up in front of the task force, if they ever do that, what the city attorney's office will communicate is that they are committed to figuring out how to register or keep some sort of city regulation on dispensaries effective, no matter what the Supreme Court does. But they can't make that decision until the Supreme Court tells them what's legal and what's not legal. So we're all in sort of a holding pattern waiting for the California Supreme Court to weigh in. When do we think that's going to happen? Our best guesstimate is sometime this spring. So in the meantime, the planning department has created, as you'll see down here at the bottom of your agenda, a January 26th date. So the city of San Francisco is anticipating the Supreme Court may weigh in before January 26th, in which case they'll know which way to move forward. So I don't think anyone should be concerned that the city of San Francisco is looking at scrapping all dispensaries. In fact, they're looking to figure out a way to protect what we have and further create and protect and advance safe access in the future in light of what's happening with the 5 collectives that we just heard about being shut down. So trying to work with them to figure out how to maneuver, and then putting the rest of us that are currently have pending applications in a holding pattern. But I'm not concerned that the city of San Francisco is saying we're going to scrap it. They're really trying to figure out what they can and can't do based on the Supreme Court's ruling. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I'd hate to see, you know, that just obliterated that whole, would be horrible. I like how it's regulated here. For us, it's really important, and so,
And it bodes well for the dispensaries that are permitted but have been shut down, because whatever is figured out, there's got to be some sort of grandfathering.
Yeah.
So if you already have a permit, I would have a feeling that they would be a lot more amenable to relocating,
Yeah.
you know, according to the new guidelines.
Yeah.
What unguided.
I would like to implore that we have a way that people can get the one they closed now has the most reasonable. Mendocino, this is the second time they have closed a dispenser down that has been like serving the people. So, you know, you got to look at those people who are not going to be able to afford, they're going to go, we burying people in our building right now. Half of the buildings, hotel buildings, are cannabis now. 8 years ago, there was 2 of us in the building. Today, half of SRA hotels, cannabis. Someone can get cannabis for a different thing. And that's a good thing that we need to have known. Thank you.
Yes, one last comment back there?
Is there any way of saving these dispensaries? I mean, these are like real echelons in our community. If the laws change, I don't even understand what was the loophole that got them caught in the first place. Why them and not others?
So just really quickly, the loophole is federal law. This is everything that we're doing in California is in conflict with federal law. So we can do it, but we do it knowing that at any time the federal government can come in here and exercise their authority. So there's 2 laws at play. There's our state law, which says it's legal, and there's our federal law, which says it's illegal. Now, state employees cannot enforce federal law, but federal employees are free and in fact required to some extent to enforce federal law, and that's what's happening here. They're choosing to exercise their discretion against these clubs, namely because these clubs are within 1,000 feet of children and schools, or they've been issued complaints which are vague at best. So that's where the authority comes in, is we have to remember we have local laws, we have state laws, we have federal laws, and federal law is very different. We have got to move on to the rest of the agenda, but if you have open comment questions, write them down and we'll be sure to get them in open comment.
What number are we on?
Number 3 now, Michael?
Yes. This is an article concerning the governors of a number of states which their governors petitioned to classify cannabis for medical use. There's a number of governors. It started out, I think, with Chafee of Rhode Island and Christine Gregoire of Washington, 2 governors. They held a press conference to publicize their bipartisan petition to the Drug Enforcement Administration, which they decided to send after each received threatening letters from the federal prosecutors. They were both warned that their state employees, they would be at risk for criminal prosecution by the federal government if they were in any way involved in licensing or regulating the distribution of medical cannabis to qualified patients. As a result of this kind of action, we also have some more governors of other states that are going to, specifically the governors of Washington, Rhode Island, Vermont, Maryland, are going to petition the federal DEA to reclassify cannabis for medical use. And now I understand that Colorado has a separate petition of their own that they're filing. You might ask, well, what can I do? What action can I take? We want to see Governor Brown to join this group of governors from around the country.
Yes.
Yeah, you should.
Should be
And in
legal.
order to do that, we need to put some real political pressure on him from the patients and from people who know that medical cannabis is a medicine.
Let's go back to Sacramento.
Now, let me tell you what each of us can do. There's an action that you can take, and in this action, we're going to urge him to join the petition. And let me give you the link that you can go to. Just go to www.americansforsafeaccess.org/DEA and contact him and tell him that you want him to join this group of governors. Thank you.
And if you have access to email, you can access this online thing. This is 30 seconds. All you have to do is literally input your zip code and hit submit, and they send the letter for you. It is that easy. How many of you know your zip code? That easy. Go find your zip code. It's on any bill mailed to you. You literally input your zip code and they send it for you. That simple.
They make it that easy for us, so there's no excuse for any of us not to do this.
Did all the governors of all the states with medical marijuana laws get these threatening letters from the federal government, like the Christie and
No, in those states, the governors had sought, had actually asked for information, asked whether or not creating a program was legal. And in that situation, of course, the U.S. attorney is going to come back and say, well, not quite.
Can you repeat the email to send that?
Yeah.
Sure. AmericansForSafeAccess.org/DEA.
American.
It's on your agenda.
And then on the agenda, it should be on the agenda.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
And that email does go to the Attorney General, so it gets sent right there, or actually to the governor.
Thank you.
And then let me just, a couple things on rescheduling, because I know there's a debate going on in our community about the validity of rescheduling and whether rescheduling marijuana to Schedule 2, 3, or 4 would help or harm patients. But let me tell you, there are two simple things you need to know about rescheduling marijuana and why it will affect our plight for the better. One, rescheduling marijuana to any other schedule than Schedule 1 fundamentally changes the debate. Right now the debate is the government says marijuana has absolutely no medical value and the highest potential for abuse. By reclassifying that, we fundamentally shift this conversation. We now all agree that marijuana has medical value and people should have safe and regulated access to that product. Right? Fundamental change to the conversation. Second issue, it potentially gives us the right at a federal trial to say the words medical marijuana. It gives us the opportunity at a federal trial to present the truth, which is something we are currently denied. We are not allowed to speak truth at trial. Rescheduling marijuana, it does nothing else. It fundamentally does those two things. One, it shifts the debate from no medical value to medical value. And the second thing it does is allow us to present a real truth at our federal trials. And those two factors alone will literally cut federal prosecutions off at the legs. If we can go into a federal courtroom and say the words medical marijuana, say the words I was regulated by the state, what jury in their right mind is going to convict that defendant? It literally takes prosecution's authority away from them. If nothing else, that is what rescheduling marijuana does for us.
Don't they have to prove that, like, if they say it's not medical, isn't they have to come up with some evidence to prove that it's not? Because you have to have proof to
So the federal law is federal law because Congress passed that law in 1970. In 1970, Congress said marijuana has no medical value, it's a Schedule 1 drug, and they have not ever revisited that law. That is the purpose of this rescheduling petition. That is why we're doing these rescheduling petitions.
It sounds bullshit to me.
Yeah. Me too.
Very discriminatory. It's the same thing as the gay marriage thing.
It's true. Prohibition. All right, Tony.
All right. So California's top cop, Attorney General Kamala Harris, has sent letters to legislators requesting them to improve our statewide regulation of medical cannabis. Asa has actually written a blog. There's a link on your agenda, so you just got to go to safeaccessnow.org/blog, and you'll be able to find it at the very top. It's called California Attorney General Calls Federal Government Ill-Equipped to Enforce States' Medical Marijuana Laws. So Harris indicated the need for legislative intervention, describing significant unresolved legal questions regarding parts of 215. She says that California law places a premium on patients' rights to access marijuana for medical use, and any legislative action that has taken the voters' decision to allow physicians to recommend marijuana to treat seriously ill patients must be respected. So it's great. We welcome this. Asa is working with Harris and other legislators to come up with a solution to this mess we're in right now. Please read the blog on that matter. Thanks.
Do you want to take a break now?
You want to take a 10-minute break and then we'll continue, okay?
Okay, because the next thing we're going to do is go through 16 pages of legislation. I'm not going to go page by page, but we're going to take you through this piece of legislation. So do you want to break now?
Yes.
Okay.
10-minute break. We'll come back at 8:25.
I got some math for
When we get back.
After the break?
Or pass around that. On the ballot that the people vote on at the same time that we promote legislation in Sacramento that the legislature would act on. We think that part of the reason that they passed the decriminalization of less than an ounce of cannabis in 2010 was the threat of the initiative, Prop 19 passing, legalizing cannabis for adult use. So, Amiano thinks that our best bet in getting any change at all is to put pressure on Sacramento while we are engaged in an initiative. Now, you may know that there are 3 legalization for adult use initiatives that are being floated around, but today we're going to be talking about a totally different initiative that's being promoted by the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, which is the 3rd largest union in the country, and they have the resources needed to raise the money to put signature gatherers out there to get an initiative on the ballot. The one reason that the 3 legalization for adult use initiatives might not make it is that they don't have enough money to get people to work as signature gatherers to get the initiative on the ballot the way Richard Lee did with Prop 19 in 2010. So with that, I'm going to introduce Karen to continue about this.
All right, y'all. Thanks for sticking with me. I'm going to take you through this initiative, and it is 16 pages long, so I'm not going to take you word for word. But there is a blog that links to this full initiative, which is called the Medical Marijuana Regulation, Control, and Taxation Act, the MMRCTA for short. Isn't that short? And that can be found on ASA's blog, which is called Medical Cannabis Voices from the Front Line. And if you just look up Medical Marijuana Control, Regulation, and Taxation Act, it pops up right there and you can get all 16 pages for yourself. We did prepare 5 copies, obviously 16 pages, lots of copies. We didn't want to prepare all of them, but there were some random copies back there. So if you have a partner and can share, or if you have one, please let other people know that you've got it so that they can look along. And so you heard Tony talk about Kamala Harris sending letters to the state legislature saying, hey, we need something done. That's great. We hope that Tom Amiano, and clearly ASA is talking with Tom Amiano's office. Several medical cannabis dispensing collectives from here in San Francisco are also engaged with Mr. Amiano's office, all trying to ensure that whatever Mr. Amiano comes up with, that the sort of ideas, the sort of foundations of medical cannabis access that we have advanced here in San Francisco continue and see their way through to the entire state level in terms of whatever Mr. Amiano prepares. We understand that's a tall order. So, like David said, a broad and diverse coalition of patient advocates, medical cannabis providers, the labor movement, and lots of growers from the Emerald region and also from down south have sort of gotten together over the past, I would say, 2 to 3 months, and have collectively and cooperatively created what we're calling this the MMRCTA, the Regulation, Control, and Taxation Act for Medical Marijuana. And so there are good things in here. There are some not so great things in here. But this is the nature of compromise. Obviously, ASA came to the table with a huge list of demands. The growers came to the table with a huge list of demands. And the process was to figure out what of all of those different demands, and there were, trust me, lots of them put out on the table, were amenable, could be sold to the millions of California voters that would be voting on this, what sort of provisions were acceptable so as to not irritate or create any more or additional opposition against law enforcement. You know, these are things you have to think about when you're creating an initiative. But we also hope the process of creating this initiative is what will help to inform the state legislature when they're talking about this over the coming months. So think about what we're going to be talking about here as sort of this is the medical marijuana community throwing down what they believe to be an acceptable draft legislation, what we believe to be acceptable ways to, in a statewide fashion, regulate, control, and tax medical marijuana access in the state of California. So, with that in mind, I'm going to run through this pretty quickly, and I understand there's going to be questions. Please try to write them down, and then I will leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end, and we'll be very thorough with you. Okay, so purpose and intent. So in any initiative, you have to outline what the purpose of intent of doing this is, and here's what they've come up with. 1, to establish a statewide system for regulating, controlling, and taxing medical marijuana activities. And that means the cultivation, the processing, the manufacturing, the lab testing, the transportation, the distribution, and the sale of medical marijuana. Okay, so when we talk, write the questions down. We're not going to have time to address individual questions. We're going to run through it, and then we can write it down. But when we talk about what activities this initiative can control, that's the list. Cultivation, processing, manufacturing, lab testing, transportation, distribution, and sales. So the gamut, if you want to consider it that way. 2nd, to allow cities and counties to enact reasonable zoning regulations to permit medical cannabis dispensing collectives, and on the cultivation, processing, manufacturing, lab testing, so all the other activities. To impose a reasonable state supplemental sales tax on medical marijuana, to prohibit the issuance of fraudulent forged physician's recommendations, to establish a Bureau of Medical Marijuana Enforcement, to fulfill the promise of Prop 215, which was to implement a plan for safe and affordable distribution of marijuana, to support the legislature in creating a more and appropriate schedule of marijuana at the state level, and finally to reduce the cost of medical marijuana enforcement by providing guidelines that more easily determine what is and what is not illegal across the whole state. So that's what this entire initiative, the rest of this conversation, is geared towards fulfilling those sort of theses. Okay, those that's the reason that they're doing this, is those, what is it, 8 reasons. Okay. So now getting into the details, what does it do? So it says that every county and city shall permit and develop a sufficient number of types of medical marijuana collectives. So every city and county has to create collectives. They have to create collectives at no less than 1 per 50,000 people. So if you have a city of 100,000 people, that means you have to have at least 2. If you have a city of 150,000 people, 3, so on and so forth, okay? So 50,000 is a little smaller than Oakland. Oakland has a little more than about 60,000 people. And so if you think about now Oakland has 8 facilities, they went from 4 to 8. You're looking at about 1 for every 50,000 people is what this legislation calls for. Now, if you have a city that is fewer than 50,000 people, let's say a very small suburb or whatever that has 30,000 people in it, then that city can not, it doesn't have to have a medical marijuana dispensing collective, but it has to hold a hearing in that city, a publicly noticed hearing of the city council, to at least provide patients the opportunity to say, yes, we don't need it, or no, we absolutely do need medical cannabis dispensaries here and we should have this conversation. But they can't just say, well, we don't have 50,000 people and that's the end of it. They have to provide a place and space for patients to come forward and say we agree or don't agree. Make sense? All right. Any city and county that has current regulations, so in a city and county like San Francisco that already permits and regulates medical cannabis dispensaries, those cities and counties will be afforded the opportunity to send a list of regulated medical cannabis dispensaries that are in good standing with the city or county government. And in turn, when they submit that information to this bureau, then those facilities are automatically deemed registrants with the state, and they do not have to reapply for registration for 3 years. So it's not quite a grandfather, but it's a way to say, look, these people help pave the way and they shouldn't have to bear the burden of regulation. They should be given enough time to come into compliance, whatever their state and city regulation is. So for a city like San Francisco, and I don't know how that's gonna work out for Marin. I really don't. But we were thinking about places like Marin, like Fairfax, and some of these other cities that have bans, or like LA, that sort of have registered dispensing collectives, but then banned all of them. So this is why this was in mind, is to sort of give the local government, the local regulating agency, the opportunity to weigh in. Okay, moving on. There's a bunch of definitions in here. Okay, so this Medical Marijuana Bureau, this creates it creates a new bureaucracy, positive or negative. I don't know how you feel about government control. But we are creating a statewide regulation system. So what they've done is in this legislation, created a 21-member bureau. And that 21-member bureau is going to be responsible for sort of creating the rules, regulations. This is going to be our regulating agency. So anything to do with medical marijuana moves over into this Bureau of Medical Marijuana Enforcement. Okay? So of the 21 members, here's how it breaks down. 2 members are appointed by the Attorney General. 1 member is appointed by the Department of Health and Human Services. 1 member is appointed by the California Medical Board. 1 member is appointed by the Chairman of the Board of Equalization. 1 member is appointed by the Lieutenant Governor, and that person must be a representative from a medical marijuana industry union. 2 members are medical marijuana patient advocates that represent the state at large. 1 appointed by the Lieutenant Governor and the other appointed by the Speaker. 2 members who are qualified patients from the state at large, 1 who's appointed by, that's a repeat, sorry. 1 member with extensive experience in the scientific or therapeutic research on medical marijuana, that person's appointed by the Lieutenant Governor. 2 members, 1 of which shall be a California licensed physician, and 1 a licensed nurse. Both shall be appointed by the Lieutenant Governor. 2 members with experience in medical marijuana policy and regulations, 1 of whom is appointed by the Lieutenant Governor and the other by the Speaker. There will be 6 members with experience in areas of dispensing regulations, product manufacturing, cultivation practices, lab testing, and those 6 people will be selected from 6 regions of the state as defined by Region 1, consisting of Del Norte, Humboldt, Lake County, Mendocino, Napa, Solano, and Sonoma. Region 2, which consists of Alpine, Amador, Butte, Calaveras, Colusa, El Dorado, Glen, Lassen, Modoc, anyways, I created all of them until Yuba. Region 3 consists of the counties of Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, Monterey, Santa Benita, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, San Francisco, and San Mateo. Region 4 is Fresno, Kern, Kings, Madera, Mariposa, Merced, I never say that word once, Stanislaus, Tulare, and other T1. Region 5 is LA, Orange, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, and Ventura, and then Region 6 is the very, very, very bottom ones, Inyo, Imperial, Riverside, San Bernardino, and San Diego. So that is your 21-member bureau, and that bureau is designed to have law enforcement, patient advocates, experts, sort of the whole gamut, all right? They have to be appointed within between 90 and 120 days, and all of those terms are staggering. So you won't be getting a whole new board at once. The idea is that we could keep some historical record there by staggering the terms and having most of the people, on where there's not a huge turnover at one point in time. So staggering terms, and here's the other beauty, none of these people are paid. So this is an all-volunteer bureau. That doesn't mean that the people doing investigations and the workers under the bureau, those would be state employees, but the people that run these bureaus, these are not going to be paid positions. So they get paid for their meeting time, but it's a very low flat rate. So they can't ever make more than $500 in a year, and that's for all the meetings they go to, for all the time they spend. That's it. So it's an all-volunteer board, and we hope that that was going to sort of maintain sort of a dynamic that had the vested interest of patients at heart. All right? The powers and duties of this bureau, what can they do? Well, they can approve and deny mandatory registrations in all applications. They can adopt, amend, and rescind reasonable regulations in pursuit of this entire thing. They can hear and determine at public hearings any appeals. They can swear in, they can do oaths of office. They can, they have to maintain the confidentiality of any information obtained from people who register with this bureau, and they have to do that in compliance, or at a minimum compliance of what would meet HIPAA standards. So if you know what the Health Insurance Permit and Portability Act is, then you understand sort of what those regulations mean. It just means they can't turn over your information unless they have a subpoena. They have to develop such forms, identification cards, and applications as are necessary to license all the people doing these activities, and they have to oversee the medical marijuana fund. And then instead of going through, so there was a big debate in the coalition about what we should allow them to permit, and so what we've done is we've just outlined broad categories, like they have to create the procedures and grounds for denying or suspending regulations. Instead of going in and saying these are what they have to do, that would have made the initiative 80 pages as opposed to the 16 pages it is now. And so we just outlined a bunch of those things, like they can outline what the civil penalties, what the fines are going to be, what the suspension protocols are, what the hearing protocols are. So they get to set up basically how they get to operate. But we have created the guidelines that are going to set up how they operate. And included in that, which all should be happy about, is the establishment of exemptions from registration or reduced fees for non-commercial collectives, for nonprofit registrants, or for other qualified persons. Yeah. So if you're not doing commercial enterprises, there is a broad... So there is a broad category where they can exempt you from sort of all of these big, superfluous, regulatory, things that, let's say, someone like the Green Cross or MediThrive would be subjected to. If you're running just a small patient collective and there's no commercial interest, then there could be a potential exemption here, and they have to consider that in terms of their regulations. And then one other thing we wanted to include in here is that they made sure that in the process of creating their regulations, that there was nothing that gave them the power to set the prices for medical marijuana. We did not want the state in any way, shape, or form to say the maximum price, the minimum price, or whatever. So there is nothing in here that gives that board the authority to set the price of medical marijuana, and that clearly was important in order to keep the market competitive and make a competitive market reduce price as much as possible. Okay, so how does this bureau, if they're not paid, how are they collecting fees and how are they running? So the Bureau is gonna establish fees for all the processing of applications, for all those activities. If you're processing, if you're a lab, if you're a cultivator, like whatever your commercial work is in here, you're gonna have to get licensed. And in order to get a license, you're gonna have to submit a fee. And so what they're gonna do with those fees is that those fees are gonna be set on a sliding scale. So it's not gonna be a standard $10,000 for this fee or $25 for this fee. It's gonna be based on a sliding scale, and that sliding scale is based on what you anticipate your commercial income is going to be, what your commercial net value is gonna be at the end. So if you anticipate I'm gonna be about a $10 million business, then you have a certain fee that's different from, say, a commercial enterprise that's much smaller, maybe a $1 million enterprise. So the fee is set. Now, if you exceed that, obviously they're gonna come back and collect the additional fee. But it was important to set that sliding scale so as to protect smaller collectives while still letting big collectives thrive. All right? All monies collected by the Bureau pursuant to the article are going to be deposited into the state treasury to the credit of something called a new medical marijuana fund. And then those funds that are created in this medical marijuana fund, and that's after. If we have any fund left over after all these fees and after paying all our employees and all that kind of stuff from this medical bureau, then those funds are deposited into something called the medical marijuana fund. And here's how that fund breaks down. When the Bureau spends those funds, here is how they can spend them. 30% of those funds are going to be allocated to the University of California's Center for Medical Cannabis Research. 30% are going to be allocated for the reimbursement of physicians' losses incurred during uncompensated emergency services. This is something called the MADI Fund. I don't know if you all are familiar with it, but it basically is when uninsured people go into emergency room services, obviously those physicians are not paid, so this would be a way to sort of repay. So 30% of our
What page should you read it from?
30% go there. That's a way to get doctors on board.
Yeah.
Okay, 30% shall be allocated by way of grants to programs that offer medical marijuana education or low-income assistance or other healthcare services. So if you're one of these commercial enterprises and you're offering low-income services, if you're offering some other sort of healthcare service, then you could be available to get grant money from the state in order to keep that service alive. And then the final 10% is allocated for the purpose of funding studies regarding the best practices for medical marijuana cultivation in order to reduce the impact of energy use, pesticides and fungicides, and for providing grants to promote and encourage implementation of environmentally sound cultivation practices. So the final 10% is to ensure that whatever we're doing in terms of cultivation isn't harming the environment. Make sense?
Page 9. Page 9.
All right. And then there's a secondary thing here that says that these funds shall be used solely for the purpose of instituting this article and solely distributed amongst those percentages we just named. But furthermore, the governor, none of this money can be transferred to the legislature, the governor, the lieutenant governor, the director of finance for any other purpose. And here's the really important part. It may not be loaned to the general fund. These are not general funds. And the reason that this was a sticking point for and this is why it's so important, is the general fund is where police go to raid. That is the fund they go to.
What do you
And
mean,
if
raid?
we're gonna have a taxation issue, if we're gonna have fees to create medical marijuana in this state, it's not appropriate to fund law enforcement. So originally this was part of a general fund, and we decided to take it out and spread it amongst these different, the research, the MADI fund, the low income assistance fund, all that stuff, so that we meant that money would stay here or feed the people that help support our cause. Make sense? All right. So all of this is going to happen if it passes, obviously in November. This all has to be set up by July 1st of 2013. So it gives them a short, about 6-month window to get this program up and running. That means registration applications have to be available in July. Is that realistic? No. But here's what setting that short timeline does. It makes the state act quicker as opposed to making them draw back. For instance, in New Jersey, where they gave them a really long time to implement the law, well, now patients still don't have access in New Jersey. So we wanted to give them a really short window in order to propel and promote and prompt that action sooner as opposed to later. So we think that it's going to happen in July. I hope it happens by July, but no promises. We just want that to be. And then here are the people that are going to have to be forced to get a license under this new bureau. People who are engaged in, this is commercial practices, commercial cultivation, commercial manufacturing, commercial transportation, commercial distribution, and commercial sales. So all of those activities, we can anticipate that there's going to be some sort of licensure. With the licensure will come rules, with the rules will come regulations. You get the picture. The point being, the goal of the state is to have some sort of statewide basis for rules and regulations, and it gives cities and counties the right to sort of set what the parameters will be. So a city can still say, well, we don't want them near schools or playgrounds, but near liquor stores is fine. So it sort of, it sets the statewide basis for rules, but delegates the authority to the city and county governments, which they thought was a nice balance. Okay, people who cannot get licensed are people who are under the age of 21. So if you're 18, 19, or 20 years old, you cannot get licensed under this law. That doesn't mean you can't be a patient. It just means that you can't be engaged in commercial activities. Any person who provides false information, any person who's been convicted of a violent felony, or a felony involving fraud or deceit within the past 5 years. So if you committed a violent felony 15 years ago, you're good to go. If you committed that violent felony 5 or 3 years ago, not so much. Wait 2 years. Anyone that fails to meet the requirements of this law, or anyone who had been previously sanctioned by the Bureau. So if you fucked up and the Bureau sanctioned you, then chances are they're not going to re-sanction you, or they're not going to re-up your license, nor do they want to. But that prohibition is only for a 3-year window. So once your 3 years are over, which is the probationary period, you're free to apply again. Okay, wrapping up. Within 270 days of the effective date of this article, the Medical Cannabis Bureau Enforcement or Enforcement Bureau needs to prepare a report to the state legislature with a recommendation regarding the appropriate continued placement of marijuana in Schedule 1. Basically, this is a rescheduling position at the state level. It instructs the Bureau to provide a recommendation to the state legislature. It doesn't have teeth, but at least it's something. And it gives something that the state legislature arguably would have to at least review or look at. More importantly, it probably is going to arm our allies in the state legislature with a report that thoroughly sort of looks at all the evidence. And it's not a report that the state would provide, but instead the experts of medical marijuana for the state, the Medical Marijuana Enforcement Bureau, would be preparing that report for the state legislature to look at. So it could be used potentially to our advantage, but again, this doesn't necessarily mean marijuana is going to be rescheduled. It just provides a recommendation for rescheduling. All right, on the doctor's fraudulent recommendations, there's a provision in here that says anyone who knowingly produces, like actually manufactures a fraudulent doctor's notice or produces as in uses a fraudulent doctor's notice, those individuals shall be guilty of a misdemeanor.
Hold it. What about when people went into dentists and tried to bust dentists and they forged their own little things? Wouldn't they be charged with a misdemeanor? Those cops and stuff, if they were trying to use it to get into a club?
So when cops commit crimes in the course of an investigation, they're exempt from criminal prosecution.
So they can forge them, but other people will get a ticket for it.
And when you ask a cop, please tell me you're a cop, if you think that there's an undercut, they're not going to tell you. There's no requirement that police have to disclose their police, and there's no police can break the law so long as they're doing it pursuant to an investigation. Does that make sense? So a police officer can't just break the law because he wants to break the law, but if he wants to smoke weed, or in this case, forge a recommendation in order to get access to a collective, they can do that.
Oh, thank God for iPhones.
Okay, so now the tricky part. So, I think this is probably where the ACE is having the most trouble.
Medical marijuana tax.
Medical marijuana taxes. Okay, so here's how it breaks down. So, we already have a sales tax on medical marijuana, right? You go and you buy your medical marijuana, you're paying a sales tax on that purchase. And trust me, your collectives know that you're paying. And so, what they're doing is they're now creating an additional, on top of our current sales tax, an additional 2.5% tax. So,
that's a 5%
good, bad.
tax you're paying?
Well, no, because right now they pay 8. So we pay 8 here.
And they're gonna put it up another 8 point, so that's 10%.
We pay 8.75 in San Francisco, I believe 8.5 in Marin.
Yes,
So if it goes up, that's 10% you're gonna have to pay?
Yes.
Up on the retail distribution of
Yeah, this is the hardest thing for
Wait,
ACE to swallow.
wait, there's more.
What about the
Y'all are loving this, you're gonna love the next
What about the
division.
patient?
That's a lot of money.
So in addition to a statewide 2.5% sales tax, then it says cities and counties may impose a local tax, an additional local tax. So we know that like Oakland has a local sales tax, right, on their medical marijuana. San Francisco, God love us, we have chosen not to have a local sales tax. In fact, our city attorney thinks it's illegal to tax medical marijuana.
Yes.
God love him. So, also an ACE position. So in addition, the cities can impose a sales tax, but that sales tax cannot exceed 2.5%. So if a city or county chooses to enact a sales tax like Oakland, they can't do it at the 8% Oakland is doing right now. They can only do it at they cannot exceed a 2.5%. So at max, you're looking at, if the city of San Francisco were to consider adding a sales tax, which obviously we would all be opposed to, right? And we would hammer the hell out of City Hall. The most that you can be charged for a sale at this point is 5%. So it's 2.5 at the state level, and then another 2.5 cap at the local level. If your local government chooses to do it.
I just want to just point out that it would supersede higher taxes in other cities, like Karen said. So San Jose's 9% tax could only be 2.5%.
So that gets wiped off the books, right? And then any of the taxes collected under this thing, the local taxes go to the local government, but that 2.5 statewide sales tax, that goes to the medical marijuana fund to be distributed in that 30, 30, 30, 10 that we talked about. So these taxes also are not going to the general fund, but it is a way to fund our bureau, which if we can think about how many collectives are probably going to come up in Southern California, they're going to be a busy bureau. So that's what they're doing. Almost done, and then we're going to take questions. Okay. So then the revenues are put into that trust. The revenue collected from the sales tax is deposited into the fund. And then last but not least here, the Bureau of Medical Marijuana Enforcement is on a quarterly basis going to transmit electronically a report to the state legislature indicating how many licenses have been given out, by whom, under what circumstances, have there been violations, how much money has been collected, sort of so on and so forth. And that's going to sort of obviously give us ammunition that we've been lacking in terms of how many people are working in medical marijuana, how many, all those statistics that we would like to talk about but have to generalize will now be real statistics that we can point to as a legitimate industry that, if threatened, if undercut, if interfered with, could affect the lives of lots of people in a serious way. The last thing that they've done here on the last couple pages is made some important, I won't get into them, but very minor but important changes to clarify sections of SB 420 and 215 that were not clear. So that's basically it, 16 pages. It was worse at one point. So there's good, there's bad, the ugly. It's a compromise piece of legislation, but I have a feeling that this is the legislation that like David said, has a real chance of getting on the ballot, if for no other reason than one, there is a united coalition of patient advocacy groups, of labor, of growers, of the whole enterprise. Now, it's fundamentally a different initiative than the other initiatives out there, because this deals specifically and strictly with the medical use of marijuana. This doesn't talk about legalized use. It doesn't talk about non-medical use. This is strictly and solely about our little endeavor known as medical marijuana. So if you know, it's not to say that the other initiatives are invalid or not worth your time, but the fundamental difference of this initiative is that we are solely focused on creating a statewide regulatory system for the use, control, and distribution of medical cannabis. That's it. Questions? Melody.
Okay, you were talking about taxing. Now, who pays the tax? Is it the growers that pay the tax? It's the clubs pay the tax. Like,
So
I mean,
it's a
if they're gonna tax, if it's gonna be a sales tax and the
Patient.
growers grow it and bring it into the club, are they gonna get taxed for their sales?
You're taxed at the sale, at your point of sale. And then yes, if a collective is purchasing marijuana from a cultivator, that's
So
arguably.
if you're a grower, you're now paying income tax on your
Not
stuff?
every
that-
collective works that way, so I don't want to assume that a collective is purchasing its marijuana.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if it's like, you know, well,
If it's a collective where they have wholesalers and they purchase anything from a member off the street, then that could arguably be deemed a sale and that may be taxable. But the point at which the sale tax is actually being expended is most likely going to be at your point of sale as a patient to the collective. And the
so
collective
that's gonna be taxed by the club
collective is
that you're
responsible
going
for
to the patient.
and then the collective is responsible for quarterly giving that money to the state. Second.
Did I hear you say something about
Thank you.
rescheduling on a state level? How does that work and how would that be effective for?
So currently, in the same way that the federal law has a scheduling system 1 through 5, California's scheduling system mirrors the federal system. And currently, despite the fact that we have medical marijuana here in the state, technically here in California, marijuana is still deemed a Schedule I drug with no medical value and a high potential for abuse. What that means in practice is that when you are convicted or prosecuted for a marijuana crime here in the state of California, your penalties are much higher because it's a Schedule I drug. In addition, the legitimate use of medical marijuana is not really recognized by state law other than our initiative, and that doesn't mean that the state law is not valid. It just doesn't recognize it in our state drug laws, and this is an attempt to correct that.
Why are the taxes so high in this?
So at one time, the taxes were about 3 times this. Like, I have to be honest, at one point in this process, the taxes were upwards of 15 to 25%.
I mean, it was drafted with a broad coalition, so, I mean.
And let me tell you, patient advocates fought this like hell. Fought this like hell. But and I don't want to defend taxes because clearly I'm with y'all. Like, I'm not one to support taxing of medicine. But the thought was we had to have a way to sell this to voters, and it's very difficult in an initiative to sell anything to voters unless you have a sound and succinct way of paying for it. And by setting just the fee structure, you just don't know if you're going to make or break that bureau. And we don't want to have to go to the general fund. One, because we're not funding the general fund. We don't want to raid their funds either. We want to really be a self-sustaining, self-funded bureau that is, and through that is largely going to have some relevant independence, except the appointee of these bureau members, by creating a self-funding mechanism, you build in some level of independence from let's say the Department of Health, the Department of Justice, and this so real bureau that's gonna be created just like the Board of Medicine, just like the Nurses Board, just like the Board for Certified Pediatrics. I mean, this is it's one of about 80 boards that you can find in the Consumer of Public Affairs. I think that's what the big umbrella thing is, but all the bureaus in there are largely independent bureaus that don't get a lot of strings pulled from the state, and that is what they were after in terms of this piece of legislation.
About your grandfathering clause thing, you mentioned that this provides for like one dispensary per 50,000 people, and like, as you said, Oakland has 60,000 people. So communities where currently there are quite a few more dispensaries for 50,000 people will say in those communities, say in a year after this passed, they have different boards and different political direction, and can they use this to just close dispensaries down?
So that one dispensary for 50,000 is a floor. It's not a ceiling.
Okay.
So it says you have to have at least one for 50,000 people. That means that a place like the city of San Francisco can have 26 or 48 or however many that the local government wants to approve.
But if they want to just close it down, like Sacramento's doing, and like some of these places are doing, they're going out there and closing it down, or like my county,
They arguably
don't even allow them.
They only have
Arguably they could.
But they have to keep 17 open.
But they would but they have to keep at least 17 open, right?
One per
every 50,000 people.
What I would like to say, I think this is a great start for a bureau at this time, because I know dispensaries were a main part of those 50,000 dispensaries. But I heard collectors twice, small and large collectors. Then I know vendors. Is a vendor a collector? Is a collector a vendor the same?
A vendor would be considered a cultivator.
Okay. So now,
Depending on how that vending contract works. So if you're a collective that, for instance, some collectives don't pay vendors outright. Those vendors are on a salary. So they're part of the employee process. And in that case, there wouldn't be a sale of marijuana. Their job is to cultivate that marijuana. They get paid yearly to do that.
And I want to always take it back to the first. The 215 has really always been for the patient. And I want to always know that the patient got to be sitting on that board somewhere. They have to have a full voice always, because the medicine drawn is always for the patient, and don't ever leave the patient out of the connection of all the bureau and the dispensers. It's about the patient medicine, getting the medicine. So I hope this will be a good iconic start, but also know that there must be a tell-no that the patient is very important sometimes.
No doubt. So about half the membership of that bureau, if you remember the 6 people from the 6 regions, and then the two members with medical marijuana expertise, 2 medical marijuana patients, 2 patient advocates. I mean, about half this bureau are people that I would say represent our side of the spectrum, right? So we do have obviously the Department of Justice has a role here, the Department of Health and Human Services has a role here. And those are legitimate places, but we didn't want to have a system where we're having all of, the board of directors, the Department of Justice, that they would sort of team up and create, overrun the rights of patients. And so we really, at 21, it's a big bureau. I get it.
This is one point I want you to add in the patient, because see, a lot of the federal jobs, a lot of the jobs that are created now in school, they're discriminating against the people who use marijuana.
Right.
So we want to make sure you write jobs and training for the medical marijuana patients, because the industry is all trying to create. Don't leave them out, because they should be able to get jobs and go to school and training on medical marijuana, because a lot of the federal jobs today, if they can test marijuana, then you can't go to school, you can't get that job.
Right.
And don't leave that out. That's why I said that patient is very important, that this discovery come out of their lives. out of Madison.
Did you have a question in the back?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I don't know if this would be,
Okay.
Again, there's appropriate time limitation, if I should email the questions or what, we should be pretty quick.
Go for it.
So the first one question, I assume that since it's an odd number, it's a 21-member bureau, would that be indicative of a majority rule?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. For number 2, page 3, subsection C, last line, the word is reasonably available when it comes to alternatives for medicinal cannabis. That would be the guidelines and grounds for a local municipality to be able to ban a dispensary. Does this board have any idea or any knowledge of any type of legal precedent that would clarify what reasonably available would be defined as?
Alternatives.
Good question.
Enjoy your own discretion.
I don't know.
Voting.
But that's a good point, and I will mark that.
Because they got the synthetic marijuana out now. If we don't have real marijuana, people going online getting the synthetic marijuana.
Marinol doesn't work.
All right? Yeah, that's fine.
And then once again, the idea of like reasonable zoning, specifically, I assume that they'd be adopting the federal standard, 1,000 feet when it comes to schools or parks or children, is that correct?
It's hard to say what that is, but there is nothing in here that says it has to be the 1,000 we wanted to give. Obviously, places like San Francisco, they're right, and San Francisco does 1,000 feet anyways. But in other places, Oakland does 600 feet. Sacramento also has a 600-foot rule, and so it's entirely up to the local authorities. I would, federal issues the way they are, I doubt anyone's gonna go 1,000 feet from this point forward. But we'll
So
see.
what happens if you're already in and then a daycare comes in? After you're in there?
I don't know. Tell us about that, Matt Drive.
Anymore. That's what I'm saying because they lost, but that's what I'm saying.
Again, none of this is going to protect you from federal law.
Okay.
This is just a statewide system. None of this says states can't tell the federal government what to do. So we're not telling the federal government you can't do this. We're just setting up protocols for our own actions. More?
And then, my last question.
Okay.
And when it comes to, let's say, I know that the gentleman brought up the idea of Contra Costa. I know that some of the local cities in Marin County have enacted bans, one of them being San Rafael, which would be the largest city within our county, maybe Nevada. But would you guys have any idea or clarity with regards to how this
No
initiative
bans.
would go and
No bans.
Okay.
You cannot ban unless you have a city with fewer than 50,000 people. And you've had that meeting that allows patients to come out and say, we don't think you should ban.
I apologize. I
Okay.
wasn't expressing myself clearly.
Okay.
In terms of overturning that ban,
Okay.
would there be any type of priority on local established collectives, or would this be then open up to a statewide bidding war?
No. So the state wouldn't license, the state bureau wouldn't license anyone unless unless the situation arose where the city refused to take any action. So if the city or county was silent and didn't do anything to create the regulation, then there could be a situation where the state bureau comes in and says, look, we've got a license here, you haven't done anything, so as long as they look reasonable to us, arguably they could approve them.
Okay, so would we have to worry about, let's say, hypothetically, a collective from the East Bay coming into Marin? Would that be something that is in Marin County, would that be something we have to worry about, or could we?
Though they would have to get a license per whatever if they were moving from the East Bay into Marin, they would have to get a license under whatever system Marin creates, and then Marin would submit that license. You're sort of dually applying. You're applying at the local level and then applying at the state level. The state won't take any action until they hear from your local government.
Thank you very much.
Make sense? All right, a few more questions and then we gotta get out of here.
Yeah, one quick, is there some kind of framework in place who's gonna get involved, this framework in place, this bureau, and who's responsible for putting this all in place? It's just like, if this vote passes, it's just like.
So within the first 90 days, all of those appointments for the bureau have to be made.
By who?
By all those people I named, chiefly the lieutenant governor, the speaker.
Right.
So all of those people will make the appointments to the bureau. The bureau will start creating itself, creating regulations, and it sort of trickles down into you get the go they create the systems, and then everyone gets to register, and they have to have that system created by July. So there's 90 days to appoint people, and then after that appointment, there's another, 90 days to get that program rolling. So it's a timeline.
Remember, this election year, we need to.
Right in the back.
Okay, when you're talking about paying taxes, you guys pay, is this a city tax or you paying a sales tax? And a tax will be open.
So right now, you absolutely pay a sales tax to the state.
Isn't there a
On
city
any,
tax?
on any medical marijuana purchase, you do that now. In addition, some cities have an additional city tax. So that's why when you go to Oakland and you buy pot for $65 an eighth, you're doing that because they have a city tax and a state tax.
Okay, no, I was wondering, they're taxing for everything, why don't they tax for cities so that the funds, the taxes that pay for the tax, you pay your taxes anyway, it goes to the city, you can build the city, make it a better city. Because we're all running out of money, I'm wondering why we're not paying tax on that.
Well, the way that we had that debate, I mean, the coalition definitely had a debate about where tax money should go. But the problem was when you set up taxes to go to a city general fund, the first people that have access to that general fund are typically police. And again, we didn't want to create a system that was going to be funding the very people that are aiming to take us out.
And now, one more question.
Yeah, last one.
I know the law is federal is different than the state is different, but if the feds can still come in and take everything you own and put you in jail, I don't understand why we're open. If that's the case.
Well, the feds can't shut us all down. They
I
still
ain't
have
doing that
rights.
no more. You understand what I'm saying? When they come in and they take everything you got and they hold you down and things like that.
Well, they can, but we hope that there's more people licensed than they have the ability to do that.
Thank you.
All right? All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, we're gonna heal us up just real briefly. I think if you have the agenda, you can read the announcements. We want you to attend the Green Cross hearing for their brick and mortar dispensary permit application on Thursday, January 26th. At our next meeting on the 17th, we'll give you more of a time frame as to when that will be. You can check online for the San Francisco Planning Commission to find out a few days in advance where they are on the schedule. The task force, the Medical Cannabis Task Force meets on the third Friday on January 20th at 9 a.m. And the East Bay ACE meeting is 2 weeks from next Wednesday, the 18th in Oakland and Amsterdam. Tony, want to announce next meeting? Just a little comment?
Sure, why not? So our next meeting is January 17th, 7:30 p.m. right here. We will be doing an ACE spokesperson training. So please invite as many supporters as you know. This is going to be a very important training. We're going to teach you all how to be experts on this issue and go out there and talk about this issue. So I hope to see you then. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks for the informative meeting. It was awesome.